Good morning, everyone. Hear me today, because this is not just another message. This is a call for restoration, a call for transformation, a call for somebody who's been broken, bruised, bent out of shape, and tired of just surviving. The word today is be made healthy, whole. See, there's a difference between being healed and being whole. You can be healed in your body and still sick in your soul. You can have a strong back and a weak heart. You can smile on the outside and still be bleeding on the inside. Wholeness is not just the absence of sickness. It is the presence of peace. It is when the storm may be raging around you, but you've got calm within you. It is when life may shake you, but it cannot break you. Some of us have been asking God to heal our bodies, but God says, I don't just want to heal you, I want to make you whole. Because if I only fix the body and leave the bitterness, you'll still be bound. If I only fix the outside and leave the inside unattended, you'll still be limping in your soul. When Jesus looked at the man by the pool of Bethesda, he didn't just say, get up and walk. He said, wilt thou be made whole? Because the real question isn't, do you want to walk? The question is, do you want to be well? Do you want to let go of the pain, the excuses, the comfort of your dysfunction? Do you want to stop identifying with your wound and start living from your worth? You see, some of us have been lying by the same pool for years, waiting for somebody to pick us up, waiting for the right time, waiting for the water to stir. But I came to tell you, the water is already moving. Your healing isn't waiting on the next season. It's waiting on your yes. Wholeness is a decision before it's a condition. You have to decide, I will no longer be a prisoner of my past. I will no longer let trauma be my teacher. I will rise. I will forgive. I will be free. Because being made whole doesn't mean you never got hurt. It means the hurt no longer has you. It means you've walked through the fire, but you don't smell like smoke. It means you've cried, but you've learned how to worship through the tears. It means your scars don't tell a story of shame. They testify of survival. Wholeness is when God takes the fragments of your life, the broken dreams, the shattered trust, the disappointments, and says, watch me make something beautiful out of this. He'll take the pieces and create purpose. He'll take the pain and turn it into power. He'll take what they meant for evil and use it for your good, but you've got to surrender the broken parts. You've got to let him into the places you've been hiding, because God can't heal what you keep pretending doesn't hurt. He can't make whole what you won't hand over. So today I dare you to lift your hands and say, God, make me whole, not just healed, whole, not just strong, whole, not just surviving. Whole, because when you are made whole, you walk differently, you think differently, you love differently, you live differently, and the world will look at you and say, how did you come through all that and still have joy? And you'll smile and say, because I've been made healthy. Wholeness is greater than healing, because healing often focuses on the symptom, while wholeness addresses the source. Healing touches the body, but wholeness transforms the life. Healing can stop the bleeding, but wholeness restores the flow of purpose. There are people who have been healed of their sickness, yet remain bound in their soul because they never dealt with what broke them on the inside. There are people who walk without a limp, but still drag the weight of their past behind them. Healing can happen in a moment, but wholeness is a process, a journey, a transformation that happens when every fragmented part of who you are comes back into alignment with the truth of who God created you to be. You can be healed from what hurt you and still not be whole. If your mind remains trapped in the memory of the pain, you can be delivered from the event and still enslaved to the experience. That's why God doesn't just want to stop your pain. He wants to restore your peace. He doesn't want to simply cure the condition. He wants to renew your identity. Healing makes you functional, but wholeness makes you free. Healing gets you back on your feet, but wholeness teaches you how to walk in purpose. Healing repairs the surface, but wholeness rebuilds the foundation. Healing can patch a wound, but wholeness changes the way you see yourself forever. Wholeness means that every part of you, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and the mental, comes together in harmony. It means the pieces that life scattered through trauma, betrayal, loss, and disappointment are gathered up again and infused with divine intention. It's not just about feeling better. It's about becoming better. It's about reaching a place where your joy doesn't depend on circumstances, where your peace is not dictated by people, and where your strength doesn't rely on what you have, but on who you are becoming. Many people settle for healing because they believe that's all they can ask for. They want the pain to stop, the sickness to end, the crisis to pass. But God's desire goes deeper than that. He doesn't just want to remove the pain. He wants to redeem the pain. He wants to take what was meant to destroy you and use it to develop you. He wants to take what left you broken and use it to make you beautiful. He wants to make you whole because wholeness restores the full design of your being, the joy that was stolen, the confidence that was lost, the faith that was shaken, and the love that was buried under years of disappointment. Wholeness is when your heart and your mind stop fighting each other, when your faith begins to outweigh your fear, when your soul stops replaying what happened and starts rejoicing in what's coming. Wholeness is when your memories no longer torment you because you've extracted the lesson and released the pain. It is when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of what happened and start recognizing yourself as the victor who overcame it. It is when the person who once broke you no longer controls how you love, and the situation that once weakened you becomes the reason you're strong. Healing can happen through medicine, through time, through intervention. But wholeness comes only through surrender. It requires giving God access to the deepest, most vulnerable parts of you. The parts you don't show anyone, the parts you've learned to cover with smiles, success, or silence. Wholeness says, I'm tired of pretending I'm fine when I'm still bleeding inside. It says, I'm ready to be honest about what hurts so that I can finally be free. Because what you conceal, you cannot heal. The very thing you hide becomes the very thing that holds you hostage. Wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It means integration. It means you are no longer fragmented by the past, no longer divided between who you were and who you're becoming. It means that the child in you, the adult in you, the dreamer in you, and the believer in you all begin to work together again. It means your emotions are no longer your enemies, but your teachers, guiding you toward understanding rather than destruction. Wholeness teaches you that your worth was never reduced by your wounds and that your story is not defined by your scars, but by your strength. To be made whole is to return to your original design, to walk in the image of peace, power, and purpose that was placed in you before the pain ever touched you. It's when your spirit begins to lead again, not your fear. When your joy returns, not because life is easy, but because your heart is steady. When you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start declaring, what can grow from this? Wholeness makes you see that every wound can become a window where light shines through. It makes you understand that the cracks in your life were never meant to destroy you, but to reveal what's inside you. Wholeness restores your voice after silence, your vision after sorrow, your hope after heartbreak. It is when the storm inside you finally obeys the peace within you. It is when you no longer chase validation from others because you found acceptance within yourself. It is when you realize you can forgive without forgetting, because forgiveness is not permission. It is release. It is when you stop needing closure from others because God already closed the chapter with healing and opened a new one with wholeness. There is a freedom that healing cannot give because healing only treats the wound, but wholeness transforms the wounded. Healing is for the moment, but wholeness is for the lifetime. Healing stops the pain, but wholeness restores the purpose. Healing helps you function again, but wholeness helps you flourish again. Wholeness is when you no longer live from your brokenness, but from your belovedness. It is when you wake up and realize that you are not what happened to you. You are what survived in you. Wholeness is greater than healing because it calls every piece of you back home. It gathers the lost fragments of your story and says, you still belong. It breathes life into places that healing alone could never reach. It is the divine completion of a process that began when you first dared to believe that your life could be more than pain, more than struggle, more than survival. It is the realization that your restoration is not partial, it's complete, and it begins from the inside out. You must decide to be whole before you feel whole, because wholeness begins not with the body, not with the circumstance, but with a choice in the heart. Wholeness does not start when everything is fixed. It starts when you make up your mind that you are done living broken. It begins in the moment you stop waiting for everything around you to change and start changing everything within you. You cannot wait for people to apologize, for life to be fair, for the pain to make sense before you rise and claim your healing. If you wait to feel whole before deciding to be whole, you will stay trapped in the waiting room of what ifs. And someday, but the moment you decide, the moment you speak within yourself and say, I will not stay here anymore, that is the moment something begins to shift in the atmosphere of your soul. The decision to be whole is not a one-time statement. It is a continual posture. It means that even when the pain still echoes, you choose peace. Even when the fear still whispers, you choose faith. Even when the past still knocks at your door, you refuse to let it come in and sit down. It's the internal declaration that says, I will not let my history define my destiny. The decision comes before the evidence because faith always precedes feeling. You may not feel strong, but you decide to stand anyway. You may not feel free, but you declare freedom anyway. You may not see progress, but you trust that it's happening beneath the surface. The decision is what summons the power, and the power is what brings the transformation. Many people want to feel different before they choose to act different, but life doesn't work that way. Change doesn't begin with comfort. It begins with commitment. You must commit to your wholeness even when the emotions don't agree. You must stand on your decision. When your mind tries to negotiate your way back into the familiar pain, you must remind yourself that healing is not a feeling, it's a direction. You don't wait to feel better to move. You move, and in moving, you begin to feel better. The act of deciding aligns your heart with the healing that's already waiting for you. There will be moments when your decision will be tested. The wounds will reopen, the doubts will return, and the enemy will whisper, you haven't changed at all. But the truth is that every test is a chance to prove your commitment to wholeness. Every temptation to turn back is an opportunity to strengthen your will. You may stumble, but you don't stay down. You may cry, but you don't quit. You may feel weak, but you don't surrender, because the power of your decision is not in how loud it sounds, but in how faithfully you live it out. Deciding to be whole means refusing to keep rehearsing the pain that tried to break you. It means you stop feeding the memory of what hurt you with the energy of your attention. Every time you replay the betrayal, you give it new life. Every time you speak from your wound instead of your wisdom, you reopen what God is trying to close. But when you decide to be whole, you begin to take your power back. You start telling your story from victory instead of from victimhood. You learn that closure isn't something you wait for from others. It's something you create within yourself by saying, this will not control me anymore. The decision to be whole also means choosing forgiveness, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. It means you stop drinking the poison of resentment, hoping it will hurt someone else. It means you stop using the wound as your identity and start using it as your testimony. It means you forgive yourself for not knowing better, for staying too long, for loving too hard, for trusting too easily. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the understanding that nothing grows in bitterness, but everything flourishes in release. You must decide to be whole before you feel whole, because your emotions will always lag behind your revelation. Your heart catches up to what your spirit already knows. You might not feel peace at first, but you keep speaking it. You might not feel joy at first, but you keep choosing it. You might not see the change immediately, but you keep walking toward it because the decision activates the process. Wholeness is a choice you practice every day until it becomes your reality. There's power in your decision because it shifts the direction of your destiny. When you say, I'm done living wounded, you break the cycle of generational pain. You stop the repetition of old patterns and open the door to a new way of being. Your decision is not just for you. It is for the next generation that will come after you. The moment you decide to be whole, you become the interruption in the story. You become the one who says, this ends with me. The bitterness stops here. The fear stops here. The self-sabotage stops here. The decision to be whole is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing not to let what's wrong define who you are. It's about saying, yes, it hurt, but it didn't end me. It's about recognizing that pain is a chapter, not the whole book. You get to turn the page. You get to write new words on the blank spaces that remain. You get to decide that your life will be a story of redemption, not regret. When you make that decision, something awakens inside you. You begin to carry yourself differently. Your voice gains authority because it is no longer chained to insecurity. Your walk gains strength because it's no longer burdened by shame. You stop living from reaction and start living from intention. You start responding to life from wholeness instead of woundedness. You become more discerning about who you let into your space because you understand your peace is too expensive to be traded for temporary comfort. Every morning becomes another chance to reinforce your decision. You remind yourself, I am whole. I am enough. I am no longer what happened to me. I am what God is doing in me. You stop waiting for external validation because you've already validated yourself through the power of your choice. You begin to realize that nothing outside you can break what you've already decided to protect within. Your peace becomes a boundary and your wholeness becomes your strength. You must decide to be whole before you feel whole. Because waiting to feel ready is just another form of delay. Feelings will fluctuate, but decisions anchor you. When the storm rises, your feelings may waver, but your decision holds steady. When doubt creeps in, your decision speaks louder. When loneliness visits, your decision reminds you that you are still loved, still worthy, still growing. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. You create the moment through your choice. Wholeness begins the moment you stop saying, one day I'll be healed, and start declaring, today I choose to be healed. It's when you stop waiting for someone to come and rescue you and realize that the power to rise has been inside you all along. Your decision is your declaration of faith. It tells heaven you're ready and tells hell it can't hold you any longer. You don't need every answer, every apology, every detail resolved. You just need to decide that brokenness will no longer be your resting place. You decide to be whole because you're tired of living beneath your calling. You decide to be whole because you've seen what staying wounded costs. You decide to be whole because you finally believe that you deserve peace, that you deserve joy, that you deserve to be free. And once that decision is made deep enough, the healing will follow. The peace will flow and the feelings will fall in line with the faith that started it all. God can't heal what you keep hiding because anything that stays in the dark cannot be transformed by the light. Healing requires exposure, not because God doesn't know what you've been through, but because he waits for you to bring it to him willingly. He will never force his way into a locked place in your heart. The wounds you hide, the memories you bury, the pain you pretend doesn't exist, all of it becomes the secret prison that keeps your soul confined. You can pray for freedom all day, but as long as you're still concealing the chains, you'll never experience release. Healing is not just about divine intervention, it's about divine cooperation. God provides the power, but you must provide the permission. So many people live bound, not because healing isn't available, but because they're afraid to confront what hurt them. They've learned how to function with dysfunction, how to smile while bleeding, how to serve while silently suffering. They have mastered the art of pretending, building walls around their pain and calling it strength. But what you refuse to reveal will eventually rot within you. Secrets turn into sickness when they're not surrendered. The infection grows in silence. The anger festers in hiding. The shame deepens in secrecy. God can't heal what you won't hand over, and he won't take what you keep pretending you don't have. Sometimes we think hiding is safer because exposure feels too vulnerable. We're afraid of what people will think if they knew the truth. We're afraid of being judged, misunderstood, or rejected. But what if the very thing you're afraid to reveal is the thing that will release you? What if the secret you've been covering is the seed of your transformation? God doesn't heal through concealment. He heals through confession. He heals through honesty, through the courage to say, yes, it hurt me. Yes, I'm still angry. Yes, I don't understand. When you bring your truth to him, he brings his truth to you, and his truth sets you free. You can't keep asking for healing while holding on to what's hurting you. You can't ask for deliverance while still clinging to the thing that binds you. Healing begins at the point of surrender, at the moment you stop managing the pain and start releasing it. It's when you stop saying, I'm fine, and start saying, God, I'm broken and I need you. The power of healing flows through humility. When you admit your weakness, his strength becomes perfect in you. When you uncover your scars, his grace begins to cover your shame. There are people walking around with buried trauma that they've never named. They've convinced themselves that ignoring it makes it go away. But silence is not healing. It's suppression, and suppressed pain doesn't disappear. It disguises itself. It shows up in your attitude, in your relationships, in your reactions, in your inability to trust, in your fear of intimacy, in your anger that comes out of nowhere. The things you hide will always find a way to speak. The only question is whether they will speak through healing or through hurt. When you bring them into the light, you give God permission to rewrite the story. God can only transform what you're willing to expose. If you want to see his power, you must first show him the wound. That's why Jesus so often asked people to name their condition. Not because he didn't know, but because speaking it out breaks its hold. The moment you name what's been keeping you bound, you take away its authority. What's been hidden in darkness loses its strength when it's brought to the light. The enemy thrives in secrecy, but he is powerless in transparency. When you open up your heart to God, when you let him see the parts you've kept hidden from everyone else, you create space for his healing to flow. It's not enough to dress up your pain in religious language, to quote scriptures while ignoring the wound underneath. God is not impressed by performance. He is moved by honesty. You don't have to come to him perfect. You just have to come to him real. He can handle your anger, your confusion, your questions, your tears. He is not intimidated by your brokenness. What he cannot work with is pretense. If you keep pretending everything is fine, you deny yourself the chance to be made whole. Healing can't touch what's hidden behind pride or shame. Some people fear that if they ever opened up about what they've been through, they would fall apart completely. But falling apart in God's presence is not the end. It's the beginning. You don't fall apart to be destroyed. You fall apart to be rebuilt. You break open so that the poison can leave your system. You release the tears that you've been holding back for years, and in those tears, cleansing begins. You can't experience new life while still guarding the grave of your pain. The stone has to be rolled away before resurrection can happen. When you hide your pain, you isolate yourself from the very help you need. Healing often comes through connection, through community, through the willingness to let someone else walk with you through it. The enemy loves isolation because silence keeps you stuck. But when you open up, when you say, this is my struggle, this is my story, You disarm the shame that tried to silence you. You begin to realize that you are not alone, that your scars are not evidence of defeat, but proof of endurance. Transparency becomes the doorway through which grace enters. You cannot be free while protecting your prison. The longer you hide, the more you become attached to your pain. It starts to define you until you can't tell who you are without it. But God is calling you to let go of that false identity. He wants to show you that you are more than what happened to you, more than what you did, more than what they said. But to embrace that truth, you must bring the lie into the light. You must let him see the places where you still bleed. Only then can he stop the bleeding and begin the restoration. Some of the deepest healing happens in the moments when you finally tell the truth to yourself, when you stop minimizing your pain or excusing the behavior that caused it, when you stop saying it wasn't that bad and start acknowledging it broke something in me. Truth is the doorway to transformation. As long as you lie to yourself, you live in the illusion of healing. But when you confront your truth, even when it's ugly, God meets you there with mercy. God can't heal what you keep hiding because healing requires intimacy, and intimacy requires vulnerability. You cannot experience divine restoration while wearing a mask. The very thing you hide behind is blocking the hand that wants to heal you. He's not asking for your perfection. He's asking for your permission. He's not asking you to fix it. He's asking you to face it. He already knows every detail, but he wants your agreement. Because when you agree with him about your truth, you open the floodgates of his grace. The things you bury alive never die. They just grow roots in secret. Those roots wrap themselves around your emotions, your peace, your faith. They choke the joy out of your spirit until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. But when you finally pull them up by the roots through confession and surrender, you make room for something new to grow. Healing is not about erasing your past. It's about releasing its hold on your present. And that release begins when you stop hiding. God can't heal what you keep hiding. Not because he's unwilling, but because he honors your free will. He waits for your invitation. He stands at the door and knocks, but he won't force his way in. You have to open the door, even if your hands are trembling. You have to say, God, this is the part of me I don't show anyone. This is the pain I thought I'd buried. This is the wound I've carried for years. And in that moment of truth, healing begins. Your scars are proof of survival, not signs of shame, because every mark you carry tells a story of endurance, of battles fought and won, of pain that tried to bury you but failed. Scars are not symbols of weakness. They are monuments of strength. They say, I've been through something, but I came out on the other side. A scar is the skin's way of saying, I healed. It's the evidence that the wound closed, that the bleeding stopped, that life continued. Yet many people spend their lives trying to hide their scars, as though the proof of healing is something to be embarrassed about. But the truth is, the scar is not your disgrace. It's your declaration. It announces that what hurt you no longer holds you. When you hide your scars, you rob yourself of the testimony they carry. You rob the world of the light that could come from your story. There are people who need to see that someone went through what they are going through and made it out alive. The scar is the message that healing is possible. It's the reminder that pain is not permanent. It's the evidence that God's grace is stronger than life's wounds. You didn't just survive. You healed enough to keep living, loving, and believing again. Your scars might not be pretty, but they are powerful. They carry wisdom that untouched skin could never understand. Every scar on your life represents a place where you were tested, where you were torn, but also where you were touched by grace. They mark the chapters where the story could have ended, but it didn't. You may have been broken, but you were never destroyed. The scar says, something tried to end me, but it didn't win. It is the visible reminder that even though the pain was real, the healing was greater. And when you begin to see your scars through that lens, you stop being ashamed of them and start being grateful for them. Shame tells you to cover it up, to pretend it never happened. Shame whispers that people will see you differently if they see where you've been wounded. But shame is a liar. It keeps you bound to the very pain you've already overcome. It tricks you into thinking the wound is still open when it's already healed. When you hide your scars, you live as though you're still bleeding. But when you reveal them, you testify that you survived. You take authority over what once broke you. You tell your pain, you no longer define me, you refine me. There is beauty in the places you've been hurt, because those are the same places where compassion grows. A scar teaches you empathy. It helps you recognize pain in others because you felt it yourself. It softens your heart and gives you perspective. People who've never been wounded can't always understand struggle, but those who've healed from it know how to love deeper, listen longer, and forgive quicker. Your scars give you eyes that see differently. They help you see the humanity in others, the resilience in yourself, and the mercy of God that carried you through. Your scars remind you of lessons learned in the dark seasons of life. They speak of prayers whispered through tears, of nights when you thought you wouldn't make it, of mornings when you rose anyway. They are the silent witnesses of your faith. You can trace them and remember the pain, but you can also feel the healing. Every scar is a timeline of grace, proof that you didn't just endure, you evolved, you grew wiser, stronger, more compassionate. You learned who was truly for you, who you truly are, and who God has always been. Some of your scars are visible, but many are invisible. The kind that don't show on your skin but live in your soul, those are the ones that people often overlook, but that shape you the most. The heartbreaks, the betrayals, the disappointments, the losses, these lead marks that no one else can see. And yet, even those invisible scars are evidence that you've been through the fire and survived. You learned how to build again after the collapse, how to trust again after betrayal, how to hope again after heartbreak. You learned that even in silence, healing is happening. Don't despise the scars that came from battles you didn't choose. You didn't ask for the pain, but you still learned from it. You didn't deserve the wound, but you decided to rise above it. That choice, that courage is what turns a wound into a scar. A wound is what happens to you. A scar is what remains after you choose to heal. It's the difference between being a victim and being a victor. The wound says, I was hurt. The scar says, I overcame. Your scars are sacred because they carry the fingerprints of divine restoration. They show where God touched you, where he intervened, where he refused to let the pain destroy you. Some scars are reminders of surgeries, both physical and spiritual, moments when something had to be cut away for you to be made whole. The pain was real, but it was necessary. Healing always leaves evidence. God doesn't erase the scar because the scar gives glory to the healing. If every wound disappeared completely, you might forget what he brought you through. The scar stays as a testimony, a memorial of mercy. Sometimes people will try to judge you based on your scars, not realizing that the very thing they're judging is the reason you're still standing. They'll look at the evidence of your past and forget the strength it took to survive it. But you don't owe anyone an explanation for your healing. You don't have to hide where you've been or downplay what you've conquered. Your scars are not liabilities. They are credentials. They prove that you faced storms, endured pressure, and still refused to quit. They give you authority to speak life into others because you've lived through what they're living through. Your scars also remind you of boundaries. They whisper, don't go back to what broke you. They remind you not to reopen old wounds, not to chase closure from people who only cause pain, not to settle for situations that strip your peace. Scars carry wisdom. They teach you what to avoid, what to protect, and what to value. They remind you that healing has a cost and peace is worth preserving. When you embrace your scars, you take control of your story. You stop being defined by the wound and start being defined by the recovery. You realize that what was once painful has become powerful. You start to see beauty in resilience, You begin to speak of your past without trembling because you no longer live there. You can tell your story with gratitude instead of grief, with confidence instead of shame. That's what wholeness looks like. Not the absence of scars, but the acceptance of them. Scars are the handwriting of survival etched into your skin and soul. They remind you that you didn't just make it, you matured. You didn't just get through it, you grew through it. They show that healing may have changed your appearance, but it also expanded your strength. They remind you that what once hurt you no longer has power over you. You can touch it, talk about it, even show it, and it no longer bleeds. That's the mark of victory. So when you see your scars, don't hide them. Look at them with honor. They tell the truth about your journey, the valleys, the tears, the nights you didn't think you'd survive, but they also tell the truth about your faith, your endurance, and your capacity to begin again. Scars are not signs of shame. They are signs that you are still here, still growing, still rising from everything that tried to bury you. They are reminders that pain was part of your story, but healing became the headline. Wholeness turns pain into purpose and struggle into strength, because nothing that happens to you is wasted. When you allow healing to work from the inside out, pain by itself can feel meaningless, empty, cruel, but when touched by divine purpose, it becomes a teacher. It becomes the fire that refines instead of the fire that consumes. Every tear, every disappointment, every loss carries within it the potential to transform into wisdom and resilience. Pain, when surrendered, is the raw material for power. The same weight that once pressed you down becomes the resistance that builds your strength. You don't escape the storm by avoiding it. You rise by learning from it. When wholeness takes root in your spirit, you begin to see that the things that tried to break you were actually building you. Pain introduces you to the parts of yourself you didn't know existed. It shows you how deep you can dig, how strong you can stand, how far you can stretch. It strips away illusions and reveals authenticity. It teaches you to depend less on approval and more on peace. The process is never easy because transformation rarely is. Pain challenges your comfort, confronts your fears, and exposes your limits. But wholeness teaches you that limits are not permanent. They're invitations to grow. Struggle isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to develop you. It's the pressure that pushes potential into power. When you walk through pain with the desire to be made whole, you begin to reinterpret your past. What once looked like a curse begins to look like a classroom. What once felt like punishment begins to reveal itself as preparation. Wholeness gives you perspective. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? You stop seeing pain as an enemy and start seeing it as an instrument. It carved depth into your character, compassion into your heart, and courage into your soul. Pain without purpose can feel unbearable, but purpose transforms pain into progress. It gives meaning to the moments that once felt meaningless. Wholeness turns your struggle into a story that helps others find strength in theirs. You start realizing that your survival was never just for you. The lessons you learned in private become the light that leads others out of darkness. The comfort you received becomes the comfort you give. The strength you gain becomes the encouragement you share. Pain becomes purposeful when it's repurposed to serve something greater than itself. It's not that the suffering was good, but that God brings good from the suffering. He doesn't waste anything, not even your tears. Every moment of agony can be reshaped into empathy. Every wound can be woven into wisdom. When wholeness takes hold of your heart, it changes the way you carry your past. You no longer see it as baggage. You see it as a toolbox. You start to use what once hurt you to build something better. You become intentional about growth, intentional about peace, intentional about gratitude. The same pain that once made you bitter begins to make you better. It sharpens your discernment. It deepens your faith. It increases your capacity to love. You stop resenting the struggle and start respecting it. because you see how it molded you into someone stronger, wiser, more grounded, and more graceful than before. Struggle teaches you how to survive, but wholeness teaches you how to thrive. When you come out of brokenness and find healing, you realize that the power you gained in the dark can illuminate your future. Strength born from struggle is different from ordinary strength. It's not fragile or fearful. It's tried and tested. It knows what it costs to stand. It knows what it means to fight through silence, to push through pain, to keep believing when everything inside you wants to quit. That kind of strength doesn't shout. It endures. It doesn't crumble under pressure because it was created in pressure. Wholeness doesn't deny that the pain happened. It redefines what it means. The memories don't disappear, but the meaning changes. You start to thank God not for the pain itself, but for what came from it, for the lessons learned, for the character developed, for the vision sharpened. The struggle becomes sacred because it shaped your strength. You realize that what felt like breaking was really building. What seemed like loss was actually a shift toward growth. Pain becomes purpose when you stop seeing it as punishment and start seeing it as preparation for what's next. There are moments when pain will drive you to places comfort never could. It will push you to seek deeper truths, to depend on faith, to discover who you really are without the applause. It will break the illusions of control and teach you surrender. Pain refines pride. It humbles the heart and opens it to wisdom. Wholeness takes that humility and turns it into power. You begin to move from reaction to revelation, from bitterness to understanding, from despair to direction. You start to see how the struggle shaped your soul into a vessel capable of carrying more light, more purpose, more grace. The greatest strength doesn't come from never being hurt. It comes from healing. Wholeness doesn't erase the evidence of pain. It uses it. It takes the ashes of what was destroyed and creates beauty out of it. You learn that even the moments you thought were wasted were working towards something. Every heartbreak was pruning you for deeper love. Every disappointment was preparing you for discernment. Every failure was teaching you resilience. Wholeness turns your scars into strategies, your losses into lessons, and your struggle into strength that others can lean on. When you become whole, you realize that purpose isn't found in avoiding pain, but in transforming it. The most powerful people aren't those who've never been broken. They're the ones who've been broken and rebuilt with intention. Pain gave them depth. Struggle gave them roots. Healing gave them wings. They move differently because they know the value of peace. They love differently because they understand the cost of trust. They speak differently because their words come from experience, not theory. Wholeness gives you that kind of authenticity. It allows you to stand in front of your past without flinching and speak from it without shame. Every struggle has the potential to become a seed. If you bury it in bitterness, it rots. But if you bury it in faith, it grows. Wholeness teaches you to plant your pain instead of hiding it. You let it take root in purpose, and over time, it blossoms into strength. The very thing that once caused tears begins to bear fruit in your life. You become more disciplined, more intentional, more compassionate. What once wounded you becomes what now empowers you. The transformation of pain into purpose and struggle into strength is not instant, it's gradual. It's the slow, steady process of turning wounds into wisdom. It's the decision to stop running from your past and start learning from it. It's the realization that pain didn't come to stay. It came to teach. It came to push you toward growth, toward understanding, toward calling. And when you embrace that, when you choose to see it through the lens of wholeness, everything changes. You no longer see yourself as the one who suffered, but as the one who overcame. Wholeness makes you grateful even for what once hurt, because you can trace the strength you have now back to that struggle. You remember the moments that tested your faith and realize they also built it. You remember the days you cried and realized they watered your growth. The same pain that once broke your heart became the soil for your purpose. The same struggle that once felt endless became the gem that strengthened your spirit. Wholeness transforms pain into purpose and struggle into strength, because it takes what was meant to destroy you and uses it to develop you into who you were always meant to be.